Analysis of the state of affairs at Eskom. Joining me in studio, I've got Ronald Chauke, his senior energy expert from OUTA. Dealing Chabaleng and Ted Blom are both energy experts. And I think before we went to break, Ted, we're speaking about then this piling, increasing municipal debt that Eskom now has to deal with. It's sitting at about as much losses as Eskom has posted in the last financial year, at 20 billion and increasing. It's not a good picture, especially when you look at the fact that the people who are supposed to be helping to manage that debt are ordinary South Africans yet again, and seemingly we're feeling the strain of the economy right now.
Well, my personal opinion is that Eskom needs to bite the bullet and write off that debt. If it's a consumable item, it's not recoverable once it's gone over 60 days. I've seen that in many, many years of practice. The fact of the matter is they've got no collateral against that debt. Well, the very little they've got is the deposits, which have probably been used up a long time ago. So it's not feasible for Eskom to keep on reporting about these so-called arrears. Also, on the street, there are major issues with metering and billing inside Soweto. I was shown meters earlier on this week where 1 meter serves a block of 6 houses. How do you apportion a meter reading according to among 6 people, where one person's a welder, another one's baking bread because there's no jobs in the economy? So I find that my personal feeling is that the municipal debt needs to be scrubbed. It's probably only half of what Eskom's claiming, and the Soweto debt, as far as I'm concerned, should be written off. They need to start with a clean slate, either a fixed amount per house per month or something similar. But we can't keep on rolling on this debt and believing that one day it might come back, because it'll never come back.
Eskom seems to think that the issue of prepaid metering is an answer to encouraging consumers to pay for their electricity. Do you think that that's a viable solution, especially when you look at how different communities, not just in Soweto, have been responding to the metering system because of its own inefficiencies in terms of how it's being rolled out?
Look, the issue of prepaid metering is actually a favor to Eskom because they collect money before they could even supply. So on those bases, they could actually encourage that. But Eskom doesn't make money out of prepaid metering. It only gets its own tariff. The rest of the money is actually made by the distributors, who are a very handful group of companies, and including the banks that are selling the airtime. Those are the people making money. But the rest of Eskom does not recover that whole full prepaid metering. So they are not retailing directly to the customer, so they are not getting the full value portion of what they are selling. Even when they are selling directly, they still get charged cost onto whatever unit that they are selling over. So the model needs to be re-looked at properly. Eskom has not done what needs to be done. It has areas, for instance, it switched off the whole of Soweto. Half of Soweto was switched off 2-3 weeks ago because they were demanding a forced payment. Other people in Soweto had paid. Other people had not paid. Other meters were installed. Some areas, meters were not installed. So how do you blame somebody for not servicing a debt when you're the one who is actually defaulting on your primary responsibility to make sure that there is proper metering, there is proper infrastructure in place? Only then, when there is tampering, you can then monitor and manage. So the system is a mess. Eskom needs to go back to the drawing table and get its employees involved in ensuring that there is efficiencies across the board. You cannot demand a blanket payment when you know there are payers and there are non-payers, and there are people struggling, and there are people sitting on subsidies. You don't even deduct the subsidies out of that whole equation. Yeah. You're just saying that people are owing. So this issue of just blaming consumers when you are the defaulting supplier is not right. Eskom has to go back to its own fundamentals and correct the problems. We can assist them, we can tell them what needs to be done. But half of the time, there is an arrogance tendency of not listening.
Ronald, it seems that the issues at Eskom, we keep going back and forth in circles. There doesn't seem to be any clear way out of this situation, any plan. A lot of that would rest on the leadership. And of course, when this incoming board, the new board took over, there was expectation that there would be a turnaround strategy and that perhaps we wouldn't be having this conversation. So when you then look at the crisis that Eskom remains in, how much of that would you lay at the door of the executive leadership at Eskom and its board?
Kathy, let me be the devil's advocate. To be honest with you, the situation at Eskom and municipalities is not Eskom's fault alone. You deal with people who chase away Eskom employees when they go to the township. They don't even allow them to do the work that they are supposed to do. That is one part. The other thing which is happening, you'll find that when Eskom engages government, instead of becoming an enabler and assist Eskom in sorting out the socio-economic problems, socio-political problems, socio-dynamics. Remember, there is a culture of non-payment. And in that culture, Eskom as an entity, it cannot change that culture. It's only government and at the political level whereby people need to start to be told that, you know, it's what, Chief, into Yamahala, but there's nothing for free.
The president said as much in his State
That's
of
not
the
enough.
Nation address. Okay, sure.
It must be done on the ground. Remember when they want to vote? Those people, they go right house to house. Now it's time that people who deal with the community at face value, they need to engage the community and help the community understand the implications of non-payment. There is a price. Regardless of you saying that I'm not going to pay, there is a price because to supply electricity, it costs money. There must be employees who are paid. You must buy coal in order to produce that electricity. There is a lot of things involved there. You can't just expect to receive a free service.
Does Eskom have the right leadership then, Ted Blom, to implement some of these initiatives, to take certain direction? I mean, I hear the point of going out into the streets, but it sounds like they need to be spending more time in the boardrooms trying to fix or carving a clear way out of the situation.
Political.
Well, I agree that the part of the problem was initiated by political action, and that goes back to pre-94. In fact, it reached its peak in about 1985. So this is a legacy issue, and I agree that it's probably not Eskom's problem to sort that out. It's actually the politicians who called for the non-payment to now go back and change the minds of their voters. The second issue that hasn't been highlighted here properly is the issue of affordability.
Yeah.
People can't pay double what they're supposed to be paying because of the corruption in the tariff of Eskom. The pre-corruption price of Eskom is less than half of the current tariffs. And I don't see why the public of South Africa needs to be held to ransom to pay for the corruption and mismanagement of assets at Eskom. And there I have a lot of sympathy with the poor who actually, because even my family struggles to pay for its electricity consumption, especially now this month, where the tariff has gone up by more than 100% compared to what we paid in May. So, I mean, this is just not affordable, it's not attainable or sustainable for the economy, and I will not be surprised if we see thousands and thousands of more people joining the unemployed queue because of this ongoing false...
Just on that point then, there's some analysts who are saying that the country might have to find itself begging outside for some kind of assistance, especially looking at the current state of Eskom. I wonder what your take on that is. When you look at then the pressures that consumers are under, meaning that they won't be able then to come to the party, so that debt is going to continue increasing. Do you see a likelihood that, in fact, Eskom may have to go back, whether to the IMF, to the World Bank, or whoever really at this point would be open to lending a hand? Is that a possibility?
No, there's two issues. The scenario of the current power station built, Medupi and Kusile. If you ring-fence that debt and actually transfer it over to Treasury, which created it. Treasury created the debt from Medupi and Kusile. And then you make sure that you can recover the asset losses on that. That's one part of it where you can actually relieve Eskom's situation. Secondary to it is you need to ensure that Eskom recovers completely whatever. It's producing electricity at 50 cents. How impossible it is to make money when you're producing at 50%, selling at 90%, 90 cents, and you're getting revenues. So something at the management level is not actually cutting it up. The other aspect of it is there's too much political interference. There is this issues whereby there are contracts that are preferable and are provided to other people, and then the others are not given. There is no transparency happening right now. The contracts, the values, the negotiations of pricing on coal, the negotiations in terms of maintenance of infrastructure, boilers, power stations, transmission lines. Eskom is an extremely rich company. It's one of the richest we have in the continent. It's making lots of money on an annual basis. Why is there mismanagement of its revenues, which is its cash? That is what is happening. It's not a need for IMF to bail it out. Bail it out for what? When it's got capital, it's got assets, it's got infrastructure, it's got revenue. There is no collapse of the revenue part of it. It is the way it is actually presented, where there is a determination to constantly put it in a chaos mode and a crisis mode. Eskom makes money monthly.
But all of these things, Adil, sound like they were things of the old Eskom and not the Eskom of the new dawn, which was the role of the leadership and the executive to clean it up. So as far as the current leadership of Eskom is concerned, do you think that it's moving in the right direction? And then I'll also ask you to weigh in on the appointment of Jabu Mabuza then as the board of the chairman, but currently acting group CEO.
Yeah, Kefi, that's an interesting question. For me, now we look at Jabu Mabuza at what I call, the taxi driver, the queue marshal, and the passenger at the same time. So the question is, can he be able to take us forward? I doubt it. From a corporate governance point of view, don't Eskom board has the confidence of one of their executives in Exco to hold the fort for that 3 months? That is one thing which we can debate. The other thing which I'm very, very much concerned about actually is how do we deal with the reality of the situation? The reality of the situation at Eskom is that the problems at Eskom are man-made and they are politically manufactured. So as long as the political leadership of this country doesn't want to take national interest and put it above vested interests that are conflicting at Eskom, we're in big trouble. That's what I can say for now.
Are you saying that it suits the political government
Definitely.
of the day? Adil, do you agree with that? It's a strong assertion because, again, this is a government that is supposed to be cleaning things up. And Ted, you have a bit of inside info, so I also want to hear what your thoughts on this are.
Whether it suits the political governance, I doubt so. The ANC is a poor organization, has no money, so they're not really benefiting much. They might be getting crumbs out of support on donations, but the real beneficiaries are not actually political. These are business people, these are asset owners who are suppliers to Eskom and who are benefiting from the Eskom revenues. So it doesn't really benefit the politicians. ANC is not getting really much out of Eskom except what it was paid already for on the deals and transactions that it did on part of the current build, which is Medupi and Kusile. After that, they didn't really get much out of it. The change of leadership
Although if
ensured,
that's the case, they got quite a significant bit.
it was
in.
really little. They made 420
Can I
billion.
flex something?
They didn't get much out
How
of it.
is
They didn't even make a billion out of it.
Politically
Connected business.
Not a lot of
He doesn't
money.
want to talk to it. Politically
How
connected
is
business people.
420
He doesn't
billion
want to talk to
not a lot
Let
of
me clear
money?
it. 420 billion was not paid to ANC. It was actually, they didn't even get more than $1 billion in terms of count. So the issues, I'm saying, make it into context. 420 billion was paid out on Medupi and Kusile. One of the biggest consortium partner was the ANC and the Chancellor House. Did Chancellor House make that much money? No. So the issue is not the ANC. The issue is the people using the movement, using the political party to front for the interest. So that must be separated properly and be made very clear. The people who are making money are the ones that are paid on a monthly basis, on an invoicing basis, and who are beneficiaries in terms of bleeding Eskom's revenues, either internally as employees, as staff, as whatever that they're doing for the utility. So the issues must be separated and the truth must be told for what it is.
That part of that might be the work of the Chief Restructuring Officer, who Eskom today has also announced, Freeman Nomvula. They are seconding him from the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. So do they have enough hands in the room to help solve the situation, Ted?
Well, the minister gave a job description for that person. And really, I mean, 90% of what the job description was given should be functions that the CFO of Eskom should be performing on a daily basis. So, I mean, now we've got 2 CFOs running Eskom, and that doesn't make sense to me. In fact, the minister said there's one person who will be the CRO, but he will also have a full office of support staff. So, I mean, I don't understand exactly where the role of this person comes in and what powers he's got. Has he got the powers of the public protector to investigate without fear and favor and to turn off contracts or stop the bleeding? No, I don't know. Certainly, there's a lot of opaqueness. And I think, once again, with all these cash injections and a lot of noise, all government is really doing is kicking the can down the road. If they were serious, they would support my initiative, my call for a full forensic audit. Then we'll see, as has been debated now, when they lift the blanket, we'll see whose fingers are inside the till. That's what's required. And then we can sort out the debate amongst ourselves as to who and who's not benefiting from this malaise within Eskom.
All right. At the end of the day, this has massive implications for us as consumers. I've run out of time, so 30 seconds each then. What does this mean for all of us who are listening to this conversation? What should we be getting ourselves ready for?
Well, what I saw today was business as usual. The turnaround plan that they put out for the first time had no meat in it. And if Eskom is successful in its applications for review of all the last 4 price increases, we're going to face another 80% price increase right up front.
The key issue is consumer activism. than South Africans to take part in terms of decision-making on what is happening within Eskom. The board needs to be completely put aside and reconstituted, made of civil society, made of unions, made of part employees, made of business society, and part of our society as a whole. That is not happening. We still have a board which was put in under really hostile conditions. It was just imposed a day after having been given an advertising, closing down of the advertising for looking at board people. So currently, the board needs to be removed properly, and we need to put in a proper executive in place. After the executive, do a proper efficiency model. It's not a rocket science to run Eskom. They've done it previously like that. They've built the electricity we're enjoying today. So that's what needs to be done.
All right. Ronald, final word.
Yes, in conclusion, we need to do what we call the electricity sector reform. It's very, very important that that is put into context by dealing with the short-term issues, of which is fixing the board at Eskom and the business model of Eskom is very, very important. Because now, if I can explain to you that the role of Eskom about how in future it should look like, we don't know. So it means that we need a strategic direction, while it's the quick issues that has to be done now in order to stop the bleeding of cash, irresponsible expenditures. It has to be fixed now, while it's at the same time we come up with a plan of what kind of an Eskom do we want so that we can propel the economy to create jobs for our people. Many people are unemployed, and then it's man-made. We can fix it and then get it right.
All right. I wonder what you make of all of that. It sounds like we're going to have to continue girding our loins where this issue is concerned. Certainly far from being out of the woods, and not even any clear strategy of how we'll navigate our way out of this mess. Let me thank all my guests then for tonight. Ronald Chauke, he's the senior energy expert from OUTA, and energy experts Ted Blom and Adil Nchabileng.